Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to another Tabadlab Live. Although there's nothing another about this one, because I'm super excited to have my dear friends Sidra and Waqas here at the Tabadlab office, the newly established office. After working out of a very small space, we were lucky enough to be able to have a space where we can host this kind of thing. Super grateful to everyone that's here to listen to at least an element of what I think is a really important part of the Adams story. But more than the Adams story, I think a lot of us are fascinated by the Sidra and the Waqas story. You've, of course, read about them and heard about them through platforms like Humans of New York, the Wall Street Journal, actually, and I'll do this right now. The Wall Street Journal, I think, declared this to be, in the whole world, at the beginning of COVID-19, I think top 3. Let me know if I'm undermining that.
No.
I think it was best
mask.
Yeah, best material mask overall, number 1, but also like a top 3 in a whole bunch of rankings. So anyone that's researched masks, and of course, many of us have been so scared of COVID-19 that we did a lot of research on these kinds of things. And I found this one, and then I connected this to the story of atoms that I'd read in Forbes at some point. And then, luckily enough, we had a chance meeting now over a year ago, almost a year and a half ago. And everything that I've learned about Sidra and Waqas and the atom story has convinced me of one thing, and I'm going to jump right in instead of doing long intros or whatever, because I think, you know, if people don't know who you are already, then they need to Google it. So I'm convinced, and of course this has nothing to do with you, this is just me. I'm convinced that atoms is, you know, you made a shoe and it was a great shoe, and I'm sort of, luckily I'm wearing my sort of favorite pairs of atoms today. And you made, and then suddenly COVID came and you made a mask. And my suspicion is you'll keep making things, you'll keep making shoes and masks and other things, but mostly the thing that you make is a process of design. And so essentially, when I think of Atoms, I think of it as a design company. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if you think that's appropriate or only part of the story or the whole story, or because I'd love for you to talk about the journey of how the shoe came about.
Right.
And anybody who hears that story is convinced that you guys are designers. And everything else you are, which you are, is secondary, tertiary, but the thing that you guys are is that you're a design team.
Right. So I think,
feel free to take this off because I have.
Right, okay. Right, so I think fundamentally when Waqas and we think about atoms, we think about that we are in a core as a product company. And this is why we take our design very, very seriously. And we make product for everyday use. If you look at atom shoes are very, very simple. You can dress up, dress down. And this is why even this mask, like it's very simple, plain, minimal. But then when we think about like function in our product, we start from the material. And that's how like we go when we start the product creation process. But before that, we do one more thing, which is very, very important. We actually do research how people are wearing these products in their everyday life. And then we look at like, okay, we are making this product for everyday people walk a lot. People stand, people sit in different positions, not like even if I look at this room, everyone is sitting, but sitting with a very different posture of their feet. So what type of like shoes we have to design? And similarly, when we were designing masks, we were thinking about, okay, people are going to use these masks in summer, in winter season. People are going to wear this on their face, and you know, people are going to wear makeup and all of those things. So there would be sweat, dust, all of those things. So how we need to like design our material. So we use copper lining in our mask. Then we actually mineralize the thread. Mineral has this capacity of temperature regulation. So these type of things we do as a research. But first we start how we think about people are going to use our product. This is why when we talk about what we are using in our product, we don't say like, hey, there is copper lining in the mask, but why we are doing this. The reason is because it has antimicrobial properties, and when you have sweat on your face, there are a lot of germs, and also when we talk and all of those things. But also, I want Waqas to share the story of our research when we were working on Atom's first shoes. We are calling it the first version of Atoms is Model 0. And the next version, which we are secretly working on, is coming up. That is Model 1. And there are significant changes which people will experience when they will use that product are going to happen on that.
There's also a special edition that's between Model 0 and Model 1, which
keep coming.
Which keeps coming,
Yeah, I think like so Atoms is our second sneaker or shoe company, and we were like in San Francisco at that time, and we were asked like, hey, does the world need another shoe company? Like there's so many shoe companies, and we saw that there are so many shoe companies. For every business, there are so many. What we saw that every shoe company, what they're trying to do is, oh, that company does this. If we make these changes, we can have a different shoe. So everyone is just trying to like make some small tweaks according to their taste or preferences, and just launch the shoes. What we thought was like, and it sounds like kind of strange, but what we really thought was, why do we even need shoe? And it's like simple question, why do we even need shoe, and why do we start a shoe company? Why don't Sidra and I go work at Nike and just like make shoes there? What we learned was like no one was trying to solve problem of everyday shoe to a level that we wanted. And what our level was, where we are willing to go to an atomic level to make the shoe better. And that's where the name Atoms came from.
So everybody else there's already the concept of the shoe, and they're kind of building on top of that. And you were like, let's strip the idea of the shoe down to, like you said, like a molecular atomic level. And then build back up.
Yeah, and so we said, so the other natural thing usually is when you are starting a shoe company, you go talk to shoe factories, you start looking at magazines. We did not do that. We bought and we like ordered books which were old books and old magazines and old press releases of like Nike, Apple, Patagonia, Sony. And we would go to Golden Gate Park, and like for like 1 year we would just like read through why do certain products do what they do and how did they become so successful.
So were the Y Combinator colleagues that you had, that class, were they jealous of you guys? Because they must have been sweating over accounts sheets and like coding and everything, and you guys are sitting in the park reading these designs.
If we did not have the success that we have now, no one would have done.
Right.
Now like everyone thinks that was genius because it worked out.
I just want to add, Waqas, one thing. I think we are a little bit, not a little bit, like a lot crazy. Our visas were about to expire when we were working on this, and we had only $20,000 in our bank account. We were running our company, and our expense living in San Francisco are around like $5,000 per month. So like we had only to live, like 3 months visa about to expire, and had no idea like if this company will survive or not. Instead of working on our first company and making sure that we run our business, we were like so much obsessed on the product and this idea that the original idea of going into sneaker company was something different. We went into YC with our leather dress shoes company, Marhor. And people were buying our product because they love our story, and they heard, oh, first Pakistani company, first Pakistani founders from village and
first
small
fashion
towns.
Company in YC.
Fashion company in YC, because there are a lot of tech companies. And people were buying because of the story, but we were not seeing them wearing our shoes. So we started asking them, why you are not wearing our shoes? Like, where do you wear our shoes? And I remember like on demo day, no one was wearing, actually one investor only was wearing, Bilal, he was wearing our shoes. And that was like very eye-opening for us, and we started asking people. And then we learned one thing. They said, we love your shoes, it's beautiful craftsmanship, but we use the shoes for wedding, for special occasions. So this idea of making leather dress shoes for every day was always in our mind. Actually, we learned very early on, and I don't know from where it came. And that was like key for us when we learned after reading so many books, that all the good inventions become part of everyday's life. And like, I don't know like who would have invented this table or this chair, like it's such a good invention, it become part of everyday life. So we were thinking about, from the beginning, we were thinking about making leather shoes, dress shoes, or shoes for every day, even when we were working in Markhor. And we were seeing that thing was not happening, so we started doing research in market, like why that thing was not happening, what is the future of shoes, and if we need to make everyday shoes, what that shoes should be. But then on top of that, I think Waqas and I, we had a lot of this type of conversation. If we want to make a really good shoes, why we want to start our own company? It's so hard, like it's so damn hard. Like our days like goes like this and that, and sometimes so negative, like it's hard to get up. But we questioned a lot, because even getting into Y Combinator, people were celebrating outside, and we were in so much stress and in pressure, because in Y Combinator, everyone is so smart, a star, started first, second, third company, and also like sold several companies, and people were talking about and celebrating them. And people in Pakistan were celebrating us, but in Y Combinator, we were worried about our English. We were not able to speak in English. If you would have met Sidra in 2015 or 2014, I would not be able to like speak this much, because I was so focused. Even Waqas, like we both were like so much pressurized about our grammar mistake than the actual story and the skills and abilities we had. So every time we had a meeting with partners like Gary Tan, who build amazing stuff, or like people who are coming from Google, build amazing companies, we were sitting in that room and we were not being able to like talk and say anything.
Yeah, the code name of this project was K2. And the reason it was K2 was because my understanding is like K2 is not the second tallest, highest mountain in the world. It's the most hardest. Yeah. It's the hardest by a big margin. It's like not. So we were like, hey, if we can get this idea off ground, this will be like getting onto the peak of K2. But we realized like we have only gotten to the base camp of K2. There's a lot of work that we need to.
Yeah, but alhamdulillah, like I think mission accomplished, right? Like, you know, the shoes. Yeah. I mean, for the entrepreneur or for the designer in chief, it's really
work in progress.
It's never a mission accomplished, because you will probably be the worst and most brutal critics of the shoe that I'm wearing. You probably see faults in this that I'll never see in a million years. I'm too in love with the idea, frankly. Right. But I think that this journey that you're talking about, and the reason a lot of people are super excited, not just to know you, but also to hear you talk about this journey, is what it means for so many other people. And I know this is a burden that actually you haven't asked for, and I've talked to you about this privately, right? Is that now you have all the hopes and dreams of like Mosharraf, Zaidi, and what could happen to 110 million Pakistanis below the age of 23. They could all be Sidra and Waqas. And of course, they can't be. There's only one Sidra and one Waqas and one Adams. But I know this isn't really core to the idea of design, but I find I'm compelled to ask the question of how you feel about this kind of expectation setting or this burden. Okay, you're not just fighting for atoms or for Sidra or Waqas or this company. It's this idea of the potential of 110 million young Pakistanis. That's my framing of it. I'm sure there's other framings. 500 million, you know, young Muslims, or like 4 billion young people, right? From anywhere in the world. Yeah. Is that too much?
It is very intense. It is very intense. Though I do secretly love it. Like even like now I was looking at Sidra, and it's like we feel like we have lived a long life, but I also feel like it's just like this. Like, you know, it's just happened so quickly. And what I always thought was, some people in the US, they think like, hey, we came to college in the US, we went to Ivy League, or like at like worst they will think that they're from Lums, or like they're from Lahore, and then they figure out like, hey, they're from Ukhada, and then they're not even from Ukhada, they're like from Basirpur, and like they just hardly live in Ukhada, and they like, so there has been like this idea, desire, like, you know, you can show that someone I think like great artists can come from anywhere. Not everyone can become a great artist, but great artists can come from anywhere. And I think like there is like some sense of accomplishment in that sense that, hey, if we can, and I actually know people in my village who are way smarter than me. Like I literally know like these are people like who are actually like way smarter, way qualified, way more curious, and maybe even hardworking. So they can do that. And now even like people in my village, they have started their own brands. They have started their own brands. They are like coming into big cities, and they are working in tech, and they are working in innovation, and they are and they like are able to do. Partially because like Waqas ne kar liya, so we can also do it. Like,
हमारा तो लगी जाना.
right? And then it gets real. It's so that's how I would say it.
Actually, खास base तक आप जा सकते हो. Like there is, if you really work hard, you can go to up to certain level. But after that, like accomplishing thing after that, where you create something big on scale and have consistency, extremely hard. Like that, you have to have like certain things. And I believe like if you work on yourself, and actually I learned that all the fight you have is with yourself. It's not with other people. Like even people say, I remember like my biggest fight for last 10 years was I was the only woman in a room, especially when I was working in manufacturing product, even when I was in Korea at that place too. But also like when I was like in front of investor in Silicon Valley, they were looking at Waqas all the time and talking to him. That was a very different fight. But then I learned that, Sidra, why you are so angry? You should not, yes, you should realize that this is happening, but you have a chance and opportunity to change the narrative. So I started working on myself, like, okay, the conversation is going towards him, but maybe I can answer that really well in certain ways. So I started working on myself, and that changed completely. So I think you can reach there too.
So I wanted you to talk a little bit more, Sidra and Waqas, both about the material, because I'm this genuinely, and I mean, this is not me saying this.
Right.
You already know, and others have said this. Wired magazine, I think, has talked about it. Others have talked about that. It's a unique material. So you went through all this research and you came about this material. Just walk us through how you landed on this material, how you sourced it, why you had to go to Korea. Why couldn't you have gone to, I don't know, Dubai or where Germany or the US? Just a little bit about that journey.
Right. So I think the making process of Atom's first shoes started with that research. I just want to talk about that research again because that actually helped us what type of material we needed. We went to Nike, Adidas, New Balance for our research. Because we kind of like learned really quickly that the future of the shoes is becoming very casual. Like people are becoming more casual. They want to be more comfortable in their skins, but also in their clothing as well. And then we were just like doing some research, and we had like certain type of taste in our mind that if we want to design a shoes for ourselves, we want to design like this. But also we were able to identify some people who we think that look like us. It's a kind of thing, like you are able to identify from their look, or at least like the style that we were looking for. So when we were visiting Nike, Adidas, New Balance over the weekend, we were just talking to their customer what kind of shoes they are buying. And many times these type of words comes up. They said, we are buying for every day. We are buying a shoes where we don't need to tie shoelaces. We are buying a shoes where we don't, our shoes don't smell. We are buying a shoes where, which is so comfortable. I can stand all day, I can walk all day, and I don't need to like change my shoes if I need to go to a bar or something. From my office to a party or to meet with friends. So we collected all of those things, and then we were also using like Uber a lot, which was a blessing during that time because we were actually talking to our Uber driver, and sometime like we were thinking about an idea. Like in start we thought about making smart shoes, like putting actual gadget inside the shoes. And most of the time the conversation happened like this. Oh, so you are actually making a competition of Apple Watch or a Fitbit So we said, no, we are actually thinking about a shoes. It's not, so that's how like we dropped that idea. We said that we want to focus on the shoes. So those things actually dictate our sourcing strategy towards material. Okay, if we want to make a comfortable shoes, we need to have a very, very comfortable material. Like most of your weight is on your midsole, like on your bottom of the feet. So midsole and outsole need to be really, really comfortable. If it's going to be comfortable, then how are you going to maintain the durability? So this means that you have to think about durability differently. So this is why this shoes is actually two parts. There is outsole, which is durable. It's made out of rubber. The midsole is a different technology. It's very, very comfortable. And actually, luckily, we met with someone in Korea who vendors used to call him a mad scientist. So Korea is a very interesting country. Nike started their manufacturing in Japan, and then Japan got very expensive and they moved to Korea. And then they invested a lot in Korea, especially like training people over there. They actually even started footwear universities in Korea. But all of a sudden when manufacturing become really, really expensive, they left Korea and they went to Vietnam, China and Vietnam. And now they are moving to Cambodia and thinking about Pakistan and India again, which is again interesting dynamic happening. So they left a lot of like good ecosystem in Korea, and I met with several, Waqas and I actually both, we met with several Nike people who were working on the product during that time, and they mentioned that we are, we are still doing our development, material development in Korea. So those were like very interesting signals for us. And then we met with a designer who worked with us initially. He was a Korean. He was able to speak in Korea. So he helped us introduce with factories.
There's one just other point. We wrote that document which Sidra mentioned, and then like we met with a friend who used to work at Apple, and then he introduced us with a design studio which Apple worked for their materials. And we met with those guys, and they were like ex-Patagonia. So Patagonia is another like company in the US,
Sure.
very focused on material and
on activism, which we'll talk about a little bit.
And so these are like ex-Patagonia guys, very full of themselves and like very smart, and they're working with Apple. And then we are like just two people. There's no Atoms at this point. Like we were not even sure that Atoms would be the name of the company, or like we are going to even make it, But we met with them, and then they made a final, like a big presentation. For upper material, you have to go talk to that factory. For sole, you have to go talk to that factory. For laces, you have to go talk to that factory. These are the best factories in the world.
Okay.
And we were flying to LA for some reason, and I was very scared. I did not like that. What I wanted was, or Sidra and I wanted was, someone way smarter than us can really understand what we are trying to do and then tell us what we should do. What their presentation told us, they don't get what we are trying to do. So they're just telling us factories, and factories won't even get half of what they got. So we said like, hey, you guys, this is not going to work us. Can you really tell us someone who would be really good at this? And this is something we first learned in Lahore a long time ago when we were trying to find paper jali for a bag we were making. And they said in the shoe market, like, they don't have any, and we pushed someone, and then pushed someone, and then we finally found the guy. So we asked them the same approach. So they connected us with someone in Portland, where Nike headquarters is. And we met with the studio who was supplying materials to Nike. When they got our crazy dream, and they were like, this is not possible. You are asking for a new material. And around the same time, we also met with BASF. It's a material company in Germany, which developed Adidas Ultra Boost foam. And Sidra and I met very passionately with their guy in Silicon Valley. We're like, we are going to be the future of the shoes. You're investing so much money on Adidas, come work with us. He never met us again after that. So we found this crazy scientist in Korea who was able to get half of, more than half of what we were trying to do.
Right.
And he
Even the shoes laces, it looks very simple, but it took us like 8 months just to work on the shoes, because we were asking them that we are looking for a shoelace that looks like a shoelace but has elasticity. And there was no infrastructure available, like they were making elastic band or just shoelaces. So how to combine those two things?
Like
It was a
people who make
challenge.
elastic, you are asking them to make shoelaces.
Yeah.
People who are making shoelaces, you are asking them. And people don't like to change here. Before they even do hair, they don't want to change hair.
And to me, that's the whole design thing, right?
Yeah.
You're designers because you're starting from you're capable of erasing what's already out there conceptually and starting from zero, which is the only way to build anything. And I think a great business is built by people who are capable of removing assumptions and comfort zones, right? Because that's what you were doing. And I think the fact that you guys are from Okada, and not even from Okada, actually has a lot to do with why you've been so successful. Because a lot of folks that have been to Karachi Grammar or Harvard or, you know, like the job at McKinsey, they're stuck in the way of perfection that is acknowledged by 99.99% of all people, that this is the best way to do things. And so if you're stuck in that, you'll never ask all the questions that you've been asking, no?
I don't know, there is something crazy. I was like just reflecting and observing, and I think I was observing in you too, right? When you were talking about in that room. I think there is an idea in our head that humans still they have not fully realized their potential, and people are doing an average job continuously. Like we see like some spikes here and there coming, and then people settle down on average. If you don't push towards the high quality, the default is average. Like it's the gravity is average. And I feel like this is something happening in entire humanity right now. Like there are very few things that are coming up, but when they come up, everyone notices. It's like so unique. So this is why I think in my mind, I always think when someone tell me that, and my product team, they are super angry on me. They're all the time like angry. They just say like, hey, we have 30 years experience and you are telling us to do this, but how? And I say like, I can't tell how, but I think it's possible because someone else who is making a car is able to like make this thing for car or some other thing. So this thing may be possible in the shoes. We have to like figure out. But I think also like there is a time and place to when innovation happens, because you also don't want like people to break. You want to push them as much as that they can do that work. But yes, the default is average for all of us. Like if I don't work, my default is average too.
Yeah, the other hard part is communication. It's one thing to want this, and the other thing is to communicate this. So, and I was actually thinking, I never read how to do research, and I've never read like how to write design memos for the team and things like that. So you're learning along the way, and like I was recently like hired someone in our team who used to write for New York Times and Vanity Fair, and like she could not get that why I can write better copy than her. And then she asked me, hey, how come you can write really good copy? I said, when your life depends on it, you learn how to write good copy. So it's like, I think is Sidra's point.
Like even like simple thing, okay, so how we can make a shoes that don't smell. Like this is another interesting thing, because people have like people live in different environment, then sweating happens. Some people sweat inside their shoes, some don't.
Like we thought even about the bad breath coming out of someone's mouth when they're wearing atom masks. So the copper kills that, and you don't feel that.
Yeah.
I can look at people's feet and tell their shoe size. Like I know I'm like the only person who can do that. Like people are like, I was sitting in Korea, and I think what I'm trying to say, there is a lot of challenges in us. I have a lot of things which are not good about me and I need to improve. But when we are talking about our passion around product, we really mean it. We really mean it. And that's what is different. And it's very compelling to like copy like X brand, Y brand, and look at yourself the same horizon to success as they are growing very quickly. But we are like, hey, we have to build our own path. We have to, so that's, I think, and communicating that is hard, both to yourself and to people.
On that topic, again, from the perspective of now, I think it's safe to call you serial entrepreneurs, because not only have you done multiple startups and successfully set them up, but within those you've done product differentiation, right? And you're on that path, not only in terms of model 001, but other things that are down the road for Atoms, inshallah. part of this journey is building a team and running an organization. Knowing that finance is important, knowing that HR is a function that you have to have, knowing that exit interviews, as much as you don't really want to talk to this person ever again because they're leaving you in the middle of like a really important thing, or you want them to leave or whatever, but doing that, being a responsible founder also is a design journey, because you surely weren't doing it as well on day 100 at Markhor as you were on day 1000 at Atoms, right? So talk to me, maybe Sidra, start.
Yeah, I can start. I think there are like two school of thought, like we have been continuously talking about that. One is like if your product is market fit, then it takes care of everything. If your company is making good revenue, people will come, they will also see that they are becoming part of like rocket ship. But then the other thing is where you are actually working consistently, you are growing with a certain pace. And then a stage where scale has to happen, where process has to happen. I think Atoms is now in that stage. Like Waqas and I, we have been very, very product focused, very, very community and experience focused. Like for us, it's so important, as I have seen Mosharraf in you also, that if someone is coming to our office, that person has a glass of water, like on the right side, or like, you know, on a proper side, and glass should be clean, and that person should feel comfortable. Like that experience matters a lot for us. So we think in those terms. And now you have to think about your team, the kind of like things you are passionate about, how you can actually transfer those into your team. So you can 10x those, because earlier we were meeting like 2 people, 3 people, 10 people. Now we have like thousands of customers. So how are you gonna keep that experience? You need to like create that DNA in your company in order to like make sure that that transfer, that is very hard, extremely hard. I think I have learned, we fired a lot of people, and I don't say like it's not a proud thing, but it's a part of like learning process for us.
How hard was that for you?
Oh, extremely hard. Like I was telling Shahab, I think, when I fired my first team member, she was a woman and also a mother. I kept thinking about her full 24 hours, that how she's gonna, you know, take care of her child,
Just
her
one
income
cycle of 24 hours, or like many days?
Many days, of
Yeah.
course, but like when we made the event decision, like it was so
yeah.
hard for me to even say and go and say it. And even after that, I was not feeling good, because like it's a different thing. And especially like the realization that especially in US, people don't live in communities.
That's okay, let's keep rolling.
Yeah, people don't live, they are not like here. If someone is out of job, we live in joint family, you know, someone will take care of you. But they're like, you know, you don't have any saving and all. So we were able to like experience that. So I think that pressure was a lot, but then we had to do that. But I think the other part is like the learning process for us, like, okay, what we can do better, where we can create process. We are still learning, and I because if you can share how you feel.
Yeah, it's both the best part of the work, but also like the most challenging part of the work is like managing people. So now what we are trying to learn is like, how do you hire the right people? So that's like another thing which we learned is someone can be very successful in a certain organization, in a certain school of thought, and they can not be successful with working with you for several reasons. So what we have been working a lot is, one is like, you know, not getting freaked about this. And talking to other founders has helped us. Talking to other CEOs has helped us. Like, hey, they've been through the similar shit that you are going through. So what we are now, like what we are working like this time, Sidra and I are like really, really understanding what are our like values. Like when Atoms is just Sidra and Waqas, what are the core values? Okay, so these are the core values. In our case, it's the thoughtfulness, simplicity, and hospitality. And now now we are learning how to measure people against that. So this is like where we have been, so we are still a very small team. Like we have now a full-time designer, because I unfortunately never liked a designer. I was like, they were too much trendy, and there is like nothing, we couldn't really build something original. And I also learned to like break my own ideas about myself and the design and things like, so.
Yeah, I think I'm able to like find one key, and I don't know how long that's gonna be applicable. But if you find someone who you can communicate to your ideas, and that person is able to see that on the same level, I think then a lot of good learning happens both sides. For example, like I have a really good footwear designer. He is from Pakistan. I worked with him in Markhor days. And then he left to learn more about footwear, and he worked in Adidas as a freelancer, and then with a couple of other brands in the US. And then I just did a freelance project with him, and our communication is like this, like he would design something and I would say, I think it doesn't look good. And he would say, yeah, okay, let me show you other options. And he would show me, but he would show me one style. He would not share like all of the research he would do in the back end. And then we build on top of each other's ideas. Like if he would say something and I'm not agree, then I share ideas like where we can meet. And we are able to create like amazing things, especially on shoes, like the colors we launch, masks we launch, all of those things. So and similarly we have a operation manager. I think communication is the key. And there are moments where, you go, head to head. I would say at some point where that other person wants to do something which they feel right and you want to do something different. But I think if communication is right and both parties trust on each other, I think you can meet on the middle ground. But some people who live in their head and say, hey, we have like so many years experience, believe me, world is moving so fast. Like my last 12 years experience in shoe is not relevant anymore. Like there is so many new technologies, so many ideas are floating. Like right now I also want to like off the record, but yeah, I want to actually.
Yeah, let's keep it, if it's off the record,
Yeah.
let's keep it off the record.
Off the record, yeah.
Well, we'll have a chance,
We'll have
hopefully, we're gonna try and keep you guys here for a bit longer than
Yeah.
maybe you would have liked. And we'll have the cameras off. The cameras should stay on for now, don't turn them off. I guess, maybe bring in some questions from folks sitting here who've contributed their valuable time and, want to share this, your experiences and learn from them. But also just like me, just fanboy and fangirl with you guys. Would it be inaccurate to say, Waqas, that you're dramatically better at everything that you do today than you were, I don't know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
The thing that I have to pause about this, I am not sure. I think when I look back at like what I was good at and what I brought to the table a lot to like wherever was the courage. And like all of like my friends, like the courage was missing. Like Sidra talked about English, like I could not freaking write a blog post. And then I would set like I'm going to write every single day for 1 year. And I could not write every single day for 1 year. But I wrote like over 90 articles in 2011. My grammar is way off, but ideas are there. So I have had a lot of courage, which I now feel like maybe I did not had some. But then you look at Atoms, it's been growing 300% year over year. It doesn't happen without courage. Like I can push Sidra, that's extremely courageous thing. You can't push Sidra, it's very hard. So that's like what I like. So she and the designer Naveed and like the rest of the team will like say we are going to do this. I'm like, no, this look like shit.
Yeah, he says this
and they will bring me sample and I'm like,
yeah.
You want me to test this for X, but Y is bothering me, so my mind can't even think about X because the Y is bothering me so much. So make me a new sample, and samples are not like digital, they have to like make.
Have you smoothed out the edges on that? The way that you would have expressed that maybe 3 years ago?
Yes,
Are you better at expressing it without hurting people's feelings today than maybe you were?
With me? No.
No,
That's fine. You're an
think,
old married couple, so but in terms of people you're not married to.
Yes. I sometimes, so like for example, we had a sample that came with a new material, and like team asked me like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't hate it, so that's a good sign. And then I thought, maybe I'm like showing off too much. And you think about these things because like someone works so hard for so many months, but I think what my colleagues deserve is the truth.
More than anything.
More than anything. And if I have to like kind of like change it and rough the edges like too much, then they're not getting the truth. They must get what I think is truth. So we are learning. So like we have like amazing executive coaches that we work with. We are investing in personal growth and in communication. So overall, like I would say our communication has improved. Our like here is the thing, like for example, we launched Marco Kickstarter campaign when I could not speak I had to create 5-minute content, and I spent 2 nights. I'm not exaggerating because I could not speak.
We were sleeping in the office.
And we shipped that.
Yeah.
Now Waqas cares so much about perfection, a lot of stuff never gets shipped.
Yeah.
So there are like some trade-offs. So I would say like that's another thing I'm like learning now is like, hey, Waqas, you don't have to live life once you get there. You are living your life now. So like start living it. So there are like overall getting a little bit more self-awareness, but the more self-awareness I get, I learn like more flaws I have. So
yeah. That's exactly, by the way, what I was looking for. It's literally the perfect answer. Sidra, for you, in terms of when you look back, how much of it feels like this path was exactly the right path and everything's gone well, and how much frustration do you feel that, oh, if only you'd known this thing that you know now 2 years ago or 5 years ago? How do you balance those two things? Because I know that there's elements of both in how you think about life.
So I think there is a deep problem I had for last, I would say, many years. I just started working on that a few months back. Is I'm not satisfied about my work. Like I'm not satisfied at all. Like I always set like a very high goal, and I am trying to meet them, and I'm just like achieving maybe like 20-30% of that, and I'm not being able to enjoy that at all. Like this is a crazy cycle that I was into, and I'm working on that. Like if I have to like look at the positive side of it, I think that gave me a lot of energy as well, because I was like competing with myself. It's not like the competition was me versus me. But then the bad side is I'm not able to like enjoy some of those moments, some of the accomplishment. For example, like when Humans of New York story came out, I was like just sitting in the corner and was so overwhelmed. It was such a personal story. Was so overwhelmed with the response. And also like feeling really afraid about like how people in Pakistan are gonna, respond to that. That was a big pressure. So things like that, like when my daughter was born, was such a big moment, but I had a really good executive assistant. She left because she burned out. She had to take care of a lot of things, so I was very upset and very sad. I was not able to enjoy it. So things like that. Like I always felt in my life that every time a big movement happened, similar wavelength, a bad movement happened. So I always like live in neutralized stage. And I don't know, maybe it's the case with everyone. But then I realized that, oh God, like I'm not being grateful. Inside I'm not feeling grateful about the opportunities, things I have, the people I have. Even though like I am, but I'm not like saying this out loud to
And you're
myself.
almost afraid that if you start being grateful, you'll stop being the perfectionist, which has been the source of all your success.
Oh God, that's true. Like I was taking my energy from there. So from where I should take my energy? I have not built that new system in my head, taking energy from being grateful and all of those things. I was taking energy from, okay, high achiever. Because I was not like high achiever in my class, and all of a sudden, I started doing things my way, and I was able to like navigate through out of that. So I think that was a very good realization for me. I'm still working on that, and I'm trying to find a balance. It's very hard to find a balance, and then still being able to do those things which you want to do. I think what the other realization was, the things that you think are your weak point, many times those are your strengths. So I'm also like looking at that side of the story. I don't know, like I haven't reached to any conclusion as yet.
I think that's part of your superpower, is the consciousness and the confidence to know that you haven't reached the conclusion. Because I
Yeah.
think that, again, it goes back to so many people being incapable of design, because you can't design if you are starting from a point of knowing. You can only design from a point of not knowing. So with that kind of slightly spiritual note, I should thank you guys. I did want to get a few questions or comments from people that are here with us. We'll keep recording, although we may not necessarily include all of the thing, but a round of applause for these guys before we close. You guys are amazing. Thank you for doing this with us, and thank you for coming to Tabadlab. Really grateful. Yeah, Bisma's going to pass the mic. Nosheen, do you want to start?
I mean, I don't know if I need the mic. Quite loud.
Well, we need the mic.
Yeah? Okay, well, firstly, thank you for coming. You both are incredibly inspiring and incredibly hardworking. I can tell from your whole journey.
She's the hardworking one.
Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. I actually wrote them down. But how did you mentioned how you had trouble, with language, right? That was one of the first few problems you had. But so how did you prepare for your presentation for Y Combinator? They are known as a very strong venture capital firm. The questions from their team must have been pretty tough. That's one question. Sorry, the second one is, Elon Musk always says that it's easy to make a prototype, but making a product with a production system is incredibly difficult. What challenges did you face on the manufacturing side of bringing your product to the market? Were you ever confronted with something you had in the prototype that you had to sacrifice in order to achieve something that could be manufactured at scale?
I'll go with the second one, you go
Yeah.
with this one.
Yeah, I think like
No, just give it back to Bisma.
I was just noticing we use the word hard way too much in this conversation, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not a good thing. So the first question on Y Combinator. So it in 20, and this is something Mosharraf you even don't know, in 2011, I think 2010, we had the idea to work with craftsmen in my village to make shoes. And we needed 1 lakh rupees. We had 2 other partners, and it was me and Sidra. They had 50,000 rupees. Sidra and I did not have 50,000 rupees, so we could not start the shoe company. And a year after that, we were running our first internet business, which Sidra mentioned, a social media agency. And we applied at Y Combinator the first time. We had no connection. Even like, I know like, the way I see we are crazy is like, how do you even know about Y Combinator when you are like in Lahore, like nowhere, like it's kind of like crazy. Or maybe like where we lived or was crazy, but it was. So we applied at Y Combinator. Our English was so freaking bad. Our application was so bad. We had no business, we had nothing. We just had this idea of shoe. We applied in 2012,
Yeah.
end of 2011 for 2012 batch. We did not get any response from YC other than not invited or not, we don't have any interview. And then we applied again in end of 2014. We applied again. So within that time, we had made a lot of progress from that couple who had nothing to starting hometown shoes, getting into some incubator, getting into a successful Kickstarter, delivering shoes to hundreds of customers around the world, knowing what it all is about and raising some money. And then we applied at Y Combinator. And Y Combinator has a question in their application, have you applied before? If yes, what progress you have made? And we probably had the best answer in that batch ever. Like, hey, we could not even afford to live in Lahore when we applied. We could not even write, and we just had an idea. And a lot of people have ideas, like everyone has ideas. And making something, building like a real business, so that was like a big success. That helped push them to meet us for in-person interview, and that got into YC. And supply chain issues and getting the operations complexities.
Yeah, but no, do you remember your presentation when Jeff, he stopped you many times and he said like, I can't understand.
Yeah,
what
even
you're
at
saying.
YC, it was challenge. Like there was one senior partner at YC, he couldn't understand my communication at that time. He was like,
Yeah.
I can't understand your accent. You're speaking too fast because you're nervous, and you don't need to be nervous. I was so nervous because
have
that
to
was the only way like we
Yeah.
could, like, you know, now we see like if we had not done X, we could not have done Y, we could not have done Y, we could not have done Z. So it's like we'd not done Kickstarter, we'd not gotten to YC. So when we were starting Atoms, like this time our, like, we have like the first world problem. Like Sidra and my problems are like what I would call like first world problems.
I think I would just add one more thing that during YC demo day, presentation, our partners also helped. Every company had like 3 partners at the time, so 3 partners were there. Some was giving us advice on design, on actual like the starting thing, problem and all of that. So we had that help. But when you have to present at stage, like it's a different thing now. You have to deliver, you have to actually say those. I think the problem
You have to actually raise money.
Right, you have to like share your idea in a way that people are willing to invest in you. So I think the problem was we were trying to speak in English like foreigners. Like that's why we were trying, Waqas was speaking so fast and Jeff was not able to like, Geoff was not able to understand that what he was saying, and he kept saying, he said, I don't understand you, what you are saying, and please speak slow. And then he worked on actual sentences with Waqas, actual words, and he said like, now say it like as slowly as possible you can. And then I remember like he spent at least like 30-40 minutes with you on stage, because Waqas is the CEO of was the CEO of Marcor at the time, so he had to speak on this stage and I had to be on the other side. So he was presenting. So that was itself kind of like a big pressure on us. But anyways, the question about you know, seeing a sample,
Supply chain operational challenges.
and also seeing a sample where we think we can improve things, and then also like how to scale the production from sample.
And having to perhaps maybe, you know, omit something that you liked.
Right. So shoelaces is the perfect example. We don't like the way these shoelace tips bend.
Right.
We don't like it. We were not able to solve it. We were just like going all in circle and circle, because the way shoelaces are made on those machines, they just like cut them and then a machine basically wrap it around. And now we are using elasticity, and machine was pulling with the same, you know, strength. And then when it was wrapping it, elasticity has, yeah, exactly, it has a memory. So that memory was creating that bend. And we were like, no, we can't launch it. We were so perfectionist, we can't launch it. And we were just pressurizing our factories. And they said, we already accomplished something which was not possible, and you guys are now asking for this. And then we asked for, so these eyelets, they are not round. So many times when people use flat laces, even if you see other designs, there are like round laces. So your laces basically twist.
Can twist.
Yes.
Inside those, and we said we want to like have oval eyelets. Now in order to make this one mold, you have to spend $100,000. And we did not have that money, and then we said, okay, we'll go with this. And we, like, it's still hard to, like, the reason we have not launched colored laces is because it's still, in our opinion, it's a little bit hard to insert. It's not as smooth.
New
like,
laces.
You can do that. It's not that hard, but like in our mind, it's very hard.
It should be very smooth.
It should be very smooth.
Yeah.
And now we are making these changes in Model 1. And you guys, like, when we will launch, we will talk about those kind of changes. So yes, those things happened. And then
And you're going to organize a global launch here at Tabadlab.
That would be fun. Yeah.
Just ignore, just move on.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
It's fantastic. I mean, just the laces, because the laces are actually, if you
Flat.
don't own a pair of Atoms,
Yeah, it
save up
just-
and buy a pair, because the laces are just,
Amazing.
I mean, this is recorded, so I can't really say what I want to say, but they're great. We have a question back here. Oh, we'll come to you.
Stan? Just curious, how much of user research, like initially you guys have done, as in going to actual user, how many of iterations that you would have done initially to come up to this perfect piece? And have you, like, was it like in initially a few days that you were able to get to this design, or there were like many iterations and actual users, just like in the software world, we have this alpha testing, beta testing, and then we kind of, have some delays, and then, incorporate the feedback and so on. So have you done that for your shoes? And the second question is, can you talk about scaling teams? You must have scaled the team from, very small number to a large number. So how would you have done that?
First you go with first one.
Yeah, so the first one we started user testing from the day one, when even we did not have any prototype. We would get their feedback on the shoe they already have. And then we would also talk about some of their other favorite shoes which they don't have right now but they like. We would also ask them, what are your favorite products? What you like about them? What is common in them? So there was like one stage of that feedback that we were getting, and we were making notes. And then we had initial sample, and then we gave them, and then we got feedback, and then we made more samples. So we would keep changing. And the truth is, we are always testing. Every time we make a new batch of the shoe, we try to improve something in the shoe. Even if a customer can see or not see, we still try to improve that. Even if it's not about the product, we try to improve something on the process, sustainability and ethics. Like something has to improve, because this is what we think, like that's how we can scale. Waqas and Sidra can't scale, but maybe our ideas can scale if they are understood and owned by other people. And that's like what we are trying to do when we are trying to like write these things down and also like push for our ideas to like come out in form where they can be done.
Yeah, actually we made around like 10, 12 samples.
Like 10, we made hundreds of samples, but like 10 stages of samples, like first sample, second sample, third sample, like a lot of.
And when we receive our first sample, which we really liked, we send an email to Y Combinator founders. We said we are making shoes for hackers and painters, and we have only 10.5 size. If your size is 10.5, we would love to invite you at our place. We were making breakfast for them at our place. We invited them, made breakfast, Pakistani breakfast and chai, and really showed them also hospitality. And wherever they were putting their feet inside the shoes, they said, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. And actually that helped us a lot, because they started sharing about that experience on Twitter and Instagram. And that's how initially like investor picked up about Atoms as a brand, that, oh, there is this new company that is working on product.
And Sidra and I ourselves were like very hard user tester. And that's like one thing we are trying to teach to our team. Like, hey, before you even give to user, like, are you satisfied with this? Like, you, like whoever is looking at that. And that's like like Mosharraf is telling someone like, hey, go and buy like some oranges, and someone has to make the decision on which oranges to buy and how many to buy, and from this shop or that shop. There's a lot of quality check that happens in that person's brains, and you want them to like have that agency and that taste.
Yeah, I think someone who can buy a really good vegetable, अगर आप उसको भेजें और वो दुकान से सब्जी ले आए, वो बंदे का स्टैंडर्ड है.
I was one of the best.
Okay. And the second part on scalability of team, actually we went through a lot of transition. So in 2019, we launched our business like in public on June 2019. We had a lot of people. We raised our investment and we hired a lot of people, and then Waqas and I, we were coming into the office and we had no idea who is doing what. And we were not able to our conversion rate from email was also down. We have a lot of people and no idea what's going on. So we had a layoff start of 2020 before pandemic. We had no idea pandemic was going to come. And then pandemic happened and we were very, very scared. And then we launched Mask, which was again a lot of conversation that, oh, we had a layoff. We said we want to be focused, and now instead of selling shoes, we are launching Mask. So anyways, I think we made a really good decision. But in 2020 and 2021, we worked with a very, very small team. We hired contractors because we wanted to learn that people who are going to come in Atoms, first of all, like they have to have a certain standard quality check. The other thing is like we need to know what kind of work we want from them. I think that learning had to happen. So that really helped us. Now I think we are ready for scale. Now this year we're going to hire a lot of people, and we are working on it.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
My name is Aisha and Sidra and Waqas. I'd just like to say that it's really, really wonderful that you guys are so vulnerable, so open about your story. I think it's, you have to be very grounded as entrepreneurs and founders to be able to do that. उर्दू में पूछूं अगर आप दोनों माइंड ना करें.
हाँ हम लोग
पंजाबी में पूछ सकते हैं.
So मुझे ये बताएं कि for Atoms and for both of you, आप दोनों के लिए कोई ऐसा turning point जो आप समझते हैं कि यहाँ पहुँच के भी thought के now we're closing business, ये नहीं होगा और बस अब हम नहीं कर रहे, और from there on, and like with your courage and with your leadership, how did you kind of come out of that, if there was such a point, and if there were multiple, of course, share those.
Yeah, I think so. एक चीज़ जिसका हमें पता नहीं था स्टार्ट में कि इस तरह के पॉइंट्स कभी बंद नहीं होंगे. ठीक है, एक तो पहले ये बात है, हमें ये पता था कि आएंगे लेकिन बंद नहीं होंगे, और दिस स्टिल कंटिन्यूस. कि जो डिज़ाइनर जिसकी सिद्रा ने बात की, जिन्होंने मैं किसी से कनेक्ट करवाया कोरिया में, he said I'm not going to work with you because you guys push to perfection. You guys are crazy. Like he would actually like say us these kind of things, very disrespectful.
He would say कि आप Hyundai की फैक्ट्री में Mercedes बनाना चाह रहे हैं.
and so that was his analogy. तो उसने अचानक से कहा कि मैं काम नहीं करूँगा. अब उस बंदे के पास हमारा 7 महीने का नॉलेज है, जितने लोगों से हमने बात की है उसके थ्रू की है, उसको पुश किया. सो एक तो वो टाइम था. इसके अलावा एक दफ़ा एक इन्वेस्टर ने कमिट किया कि शी विल इन्वेस्ट. दिस इज़ लाइक व्हेन आई वाज स्टार्टिंग ऑफ, एंड हमने फैक्ट्री को कंफर्म किया कि हम 3000 शूज़ बनाएंगे. उस इन्वेस्टर ने कहा कि मैं पैसे नहीं दे रही, और उसने ये कहा भी नहीं. लाइक एक महीना में घुमाती फिराती.
Ghosted you.
Ghosted, not even ghosted, just like, let's meet in 15 days, let's talk in 30 days, or like, I'm in Pakistan, I'm in India, or like stuff like that. And we had promised a factory कि shoes बनाने शुरू करो, पैसे आ रहे. So I had to raise $120,000 because Sidra shoes पे factory के साथ काम कर रही है, customer को hype up कर रही है, और we had to raise like 120K in like 18 hours. And we did it, and it's like, now it sounds strange, but like we learned that. So I think ये वो Y Combinator में उन्होंने Airbnb founders के बारे में कहा था कि these guys are cockroaches, they can't die. And almost like business में आपको वो करना पड़ता है, especially if you're trying to create something new, you have to have that mentality कि don't get killed. And that is one of the required skill. It's not an optional, it's don't get killed. So
ये किसने? Who said this?
So Paul Graham Y Combinator का जो फाउंडर था, जब वो Airbnb के फाउंडर्स का इंटरव्यू कर रहे थे, उन्होंने Y Combinator में अप्लाई किया, तो उनका बिजनेस बंद हो गया, तो उन्होंने सीरियल बेचने शुरू कर दिए. ओबामा उसके नाम से सीरियल स्टार्ट किए, और जॉन मैकेन, कैप्टन मैकेन के नाम से सीरियल बेचना शुरू कर दिए. कंपनी क्या जी Airbnb, और सीरियल बना के पैसे ला रहे हैं. उसने कहा वेट अ मिनट, they've already rejected them, but at the end he showed them cereal, and then so you guys are cockroaches, you cannot die, come. And that's how it happened. So it
I mean, so it's very powerful because it's seriously relatable.
It's serious. Always. You are not going to get out of that.
Yeah. We had yes, Asma's been waiting the longest.
Such a remarkable story that we're totally overwhelmed. And I just want to ask you one thing. What would be your advice to people and young people in Pakistan especially? कि how, यहाँ ये होता है कि unemployment and education ठीक नहीं है. So what would you advise them for success? You've managed to create all this from scratch. तो आप क्या advice देना चाहेंगे?
I would just say like 2 things are important. One is dream and courage. अगर आप ख्वाब देख रहे हैं, ख्वाब जो है वो देखना बहुत ज़रूरी है. Like I think I stopped watching dreams. There was a point during my journey where I felt like I am dead, like I am nothing, like what I want to do, like I have achieved everything, what happened. But I think watching dream is very important. And then the second thing is courage, because the only difference which I have seen, people who are successful failed, failed, and successful. The only difference is like the courage. If you have those two things, you can be successful.
Waqas, where do you rank hard work in that sort of list?
I think if you just start with hard work, but you always like have this mind of like learning, then you can make it happen. If you are just hard working and you are not learning, you are just a cheap labor. For anyone. If you are not learning, you are a cheap labor, no matter how much you are paid. Because if you are learning, then you change something, because you've been working so hard and it is not working. So now you're going to change something. And that's like where the courage comes. So कभी कभी ये होता है कि पाकिस्तान में अगर आप अभी यंग हैं, अभी वकास और सिद्रा पाकिस्तान में होते तो वो क्या करते हैं? अब हालांकि बहुत अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, लेकिन पैसिज्म भी बहुत है, दोनों चीज़ें भी बहुत हैं, ऑप्टिमिज्म भी बहुत है, पैसिज्म भी बहुत है. So I think what I would do is like, one is I would say is like just make sure that you love yourself, is take care of yourself. That's very, very important. Like it's like you can almost feel like you don't matter. You matter the most. The universe, the whole universe exists because of you, because you are in there. Otherwise, it does not matter if you are not there, right? So that I would say is one thing, and there are a lot of layers to it, but I think this is one part, and the learning in all form. Like just question and learn, and learn how to learn too, maybe, if you don't know learning, and be curious. And like आपको एक wave मिल जाए ना, तो just keep following that wave, and it will get you somewhere. If you are learning, this wave will get you through a lot of whatever comes in your way.
Yeah, you can be role models for so many young Pakistanis. इनकी कहानी should be.
बहुत pressure है ये.
Well, that's part of the effort. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I keep thinking, and I know it's cheesy for a lot of people, but for me it's profound, is, I mean, all I can hear is Iqbal and a little bit of Boulay. That's because of you and I know you, but I mean, when Sidra's talking, like, this is everything that Iqbal was talking about, is you know, I mean, the medium is Angrezi, we're talking about entrepreneurship and YC, but this is Iqbal for the 21st century, is the Sidra and Waqas story. Ali, you, and then you're going to have the final one.
Sure.
Did you also want to do it?
If there's time.
There's time, we'll make time. There's time, right?
There's time.
Ali, be quick.
I'll try. Thank you very much, Sidra and Waqas. It was lovely hearing you guys and the story itself. So right now we're in the age or era where brands are supposed to stand for much more than their products, and they should have a social impact. There are sustainability issues as well, and rightly so. Brands are expected, especially consumer brands are expected to be mindful of those things as well. And so my question is I would appreciate the answer in two layers. First as Sidra and Waqas, and second as Atoms, that it's okay to expect that from Nike, Zara, Inditex, but for budding companies, especially budding companies from the global south, what is your take on standing for something much more than just the product, and having an impact on your surroundings? And is it a fair ask from young entrepreneurs to be mindful of that, in addition to all the other challenges that they face, especially when they're coming from the global south?
It's a very big question, actually.
We missed this part in our conversation.
Yeah. I would just say, like, that part of Waqas and me is not very much apparent these days because of, like, the things that happen throughout this year. We are, at core, we are activists, and we keep doing things on the side. Sometimes we tell, sometimes we don't. But we do things, and we want to, like, create that activist brand, and there is a lot of, like, heat inside that we want to share with the rest of the world. I don't know if you are following Atoms Instagram. We launched two really good initiatives. One called Introducing, where we said that if you are a young artist and you are a creative person and you are looking for a paid client, your work has some quality, which we will see, Atoms would be your first client. And we actually signed one artist. He performed in our office. He's a musician, And then he also painted for us. We bought his painting. And the second thing we launched is we launched Atom's Art Gallery. We have a 13,000 square foot office in Brooklyn, Navy Yard. We met with Mosharraf and family over there. We launched, there is on one side of that warehouse, we launched our art gallery, where we showed work of an artist who is up and coming artist. But the big idea is like how we can have that place where we can also promote some up and coming artists, their work. So there are a lot of things coming up that we are working on. But we
for the first year, Sidra, I mean, so the other thing about these, they're not going to talk about every bit, and
Yeah.
I won't betray some of the confidence, but I think this is public, so which you
Yeah.
haven't mentioned yet, is the mask. And
Right.
what, like the origin of the mask, maybe talk a little bit about that what was happening every time
Yeah.
you sold a mask.
Yeah, so we have donated around 500,000 masks already. And when we made masks, our goal was, the way mask business came from, or the idea of making and selling masks was like, hey, we saw in Brooklyn, people were buying these disposable masks for $7 to $10. And if you live in like a not so wealthy part of Brooklyn, you can't afford these masks for every day. So we said, can we make a mask that is reusable, higher quality, and sell close to cost? And then donate one for every one sold. So we donated like most of these masks in the US too. And it created like a huge, and like I was talking to someone and he's like, I love Atoms, and mask is the best thing you guys have done for the brand. I don't know if I would even wear Apple or Nike logo on my face, but I love my Atoms mask so much. And so there is like part of that in our like values and giving back. If you are starting a new, regardless of where you are from, start just focus on the core product and solving that problem. And as you start seeing success with that, then you can bring your personality, your passion, your things that you deeply care about. And we do, so Atoms is doing a lot of what Sidra and Waqas wants to do, like art, supporting creators, giving back.
We had this pressure, like we are doing so many things related with environment and sustainability on our even first model, but we are not talking about that a lot because we don't want to become part of hype. And the second thing is we are not satisfied with all the efforts. We don't think we are like, you know, let's see, like we are not 70, 80%. We are just like starting up, maybe 40, 45%. But I know some brand, like there are some brands in the US who are doing, you know, only 1% related with the environment, but they are actually presenting their 100% story on that. And we are doing manufacturing in those countries, so I know really well. And our team gave this option several times. They said like, oh my God, we are doing these things, Sidra, why we are not talking about this? But if you become part of hype and you don't do those things which you really mean, I think your customer are able to see it. They will eventually see it
Even
at some point.
your team can see,
Yeah.
and you can see most importantly.
Yeah, and I think that does not feel right. So we are doing a lot of good thing in Model 1, which we think is better than Model 0, which we'll talk about.
Final question of the day.
Yes, so very quickly. My name is Suhaib. I just wanted to ask two very quick questions. You talked about research, and you didn't mention any formal ways of doing research. You talked about talking to customers at different outlets and all. So I'd like to know more about if you've done any formal research, or was all your research based on how you mentioned it was? And the second question is, if you started a new business today, and you had all the learning and success that you have under your belt at this point in time, what were the first three things that you would do? Would they be any different than what you did the first time? Thanks.
Sorry, just to bring in, since you're here, if it's quick, just throw in your question. You remember the two questions.
My question was around, was there a moment at which you realized that perhaps you might have to sacrifice this pursuit of perfection a little bit in order to actually get the product out the door? Because, and if there was, like, what did that moment sort of look like? And just another question, like, where do you see Atoms, in 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you want the company to be?
I will quickly answer your first question. The reason we are naming our first product Model 000 because we already knew that it's not perfect, and we want to go towards perfectionism, and that's a desire, and also it's a moving target. So this is why the next product is 001. and the next one would be 002, and we will like keep improving things on that product. So that's going to happen. For next 5 to 10 years plan?
Yeah, I think in next 5 to 10 years plan, Atoms will be a company that people will give a shit about. Like that is, I would say like one thing that I've learned, especially during COVID, is like a lot of businesses are there and they are there, but no one really cares about them. It's like it's not that important. So we have like smaller goals. For example, like we have to be a global brand. We have to be a really compelling brand in the US. We have to dominate New York City. We have to dominate everyday space. But I think like ultimately like becoming like a company that can give a lot back, both indirectly in your product, but also bring some inspiration to the world, and that's part of it. And like our goal is like, you know, if you have like a quality product that you use every day, it should also give you some mental satisfaction beyond that you are rich or whatever, right? Like something more compelling. And so that is where we see Atoms. And other question, like you asked about what product you would do, is like, I'm just giving an example, like how I think is like, when I was just thinking like, hey, I wish someone had made these wireless mic really well that would just connect like flawlessly, like take the AirPods compatibility and invent that. So one approach is to think that way. What is like an immediate problem that you can solve, and it's like a compelling problem. So these things are always like, you know, working, not working, wires going this way, that way, like, you know, I don't know, like you were talking about like mics don't work. And I have had a similar experience. So one is to just look at problem that you can see very clearly and you can feel it. If you can't feel that problem, learn how to feel it. We can talk about that whole day, like how to learn how to feel that. It's in Sufism, which I learned. And then in the first question, formal user research. Later on, we learned a lot of what we were doing was adopted by other companies. Like our first website was not a website, it was a type form. There was no website, you just have to fill a form to give information. Now there are a lot of companies launched that way with a wait list of sort. And then we hired people who were formal researcher and who had done research. Sidra and I do our own research, and now we are learning how to. Sidra is working on a project, something called Atom School or Atom University within company. So we can start building like a brain of the company that can explain people how we did certain things and formalize those things. So,
but I would just add one more thing in research. We also read old Apple product release documents and just really try to understand that when they are thinking about their customer, how they are talking about this, what kind of like things they care about. Because we are a big Apple fan, but also we did research on Sony and Sony Walkman, and then the first Apple product,
Macintosh.
Yeah, Macintosh. We researched on that just to learn like what kind of obsession they had with the product, and then like we learned a lot about that. And then we put all of that research on a simple document, on a simple Google Docs, and we named that document Ideal Everyday Shoes. And we had at that time we had no idea how we're gonna make that shoes. But we said Ideal Everyday Shoes. And I remember like for the first 1.5 years, we kept using this tagline in our marketing. This is Ideal Everyday Shoes, because we were so much obsessed.
And actually, like going back to your question to the young people, the first thing you can do is support other crazy idea. If something sounds crazy, it needs support.
That's true.
That is so hard. Like every time we have done something, like 5% people are like, these guys are full of shit. Like these guys are crazy, they are stupid, they don't know how to use money, they don't know how to. And then since if you're coming from Basirpur and Okada, you think like they're right. Actually, these 5 people are right.
God.
Everyone who is saying good stuff about us is just looking at one side of us. So I would say giving advice to young people, sorry Sidra, is one is just support each other. I would say like, I think that is even more important than the other things I've said. Just whenever you see someone doing something even slightly crazy, support that. Be the first paying customer at actual full price. Don't ask for discount when buying from your friends.
Please.
Yeah, and those kind of things. And like support them so they can feel, and ask for that kind of support to other people too. Support other and don't hesitate to ask for support. I think
that's what Mosharraf did. I said like all these masks your family is buying, it's free. He said no, I'm gonna pay full price. And he did.
Yeah. So
Was- yeah.
I'm so grateful for you guys to be here and to be as open. I think the vulnerability parts are really, it's an excellent point. I think it actually embodies the kind of self-confidence that comes from the kind of journey that these guys have been on, and I really truly believe that this is one of a million journeys that a million young people, that's not bad.
Yes.
1 million out of 110 million. But if we do, just imagine the kind of country and the kind of world we'll be living in. So thank you again for the time. And thanks to all of you for being here and sharing this with us. And also I should thank the camera team, Bisma, Sara, who I can't see. Sara, thank you for organizing this excellent job. Ali, that was a very thoughtful question. Bonus guaranteed. All right. Thanks everyone. Join us. I hope there's refreshments, but if there aren't, we'll arrange some chai or whatever.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.